When it comes to discussing what makes a bad Doom level, there are plenty of different factors that people consider. Some people look at layout, some people talk about the vibes, others bring up the mediocre looks or encounters within. When I'm asked which of the Ultimate Dooms levels I consider to be the absolute worst, there's only ever one answer that comes to mind. While levels like Fortress of Mystery, Dis and Unholy Cathedral are notable low points, I feel they have just enough redeeming features or are short enough to avoid being named as the worst level in Ultimate Doom. No, for me the only answer when this question arises is the penultimate level of Inferno, Gate to Limbo. This level is very infamous among Doom players for being confusing, difficult and tedious, not in good ways. Searching for discussions about this level online leads you to a road filled with abandoned playthroughs, confused questions and outright dislike for the level itself. For me personally, it marks a genuine drop off in quality from an already inconsistent episode. But what makes it so bad? There's a number of factors at play with this level which all conspire to make this level the mess it is. The level was created by Tom Hall and then edited and refined by Sandy Peterson. It's important to note this because it helps to indicate where the level fell apart so badly. Two clashing visions which led to a level never really coming together and satisfying as a whole. And you can see this in the level itself. As you start the level, you're instantly faced down with shotgunners who will more than likely get at least one shot on you. Considering this is the starter level, and also considering that many players probably won't be coming into this level with that much health, it's a really nasty trap for newbies. The level feels huge at points, but is largely devoid of anything interesting going on in these spaces. The enemy count is kept quite low, which means that these rooms never feel like they live up to their true potential. This isn't helped by the fact that before you've even reached the blue key, you've probably dealt with 90% of the level's threats. It also doesn't help that most of the level looks the same. The green brick texture, the red brick texture and the white rock texture get their money's worth here. This ends up hurting the central teleporter puzzle towards the level's end, as finding these becomes a game of hide and seek. You're supposed to hunt down these pillars that have teleporters inside them, but here's the problem: these pillars all look the same as the rooms that they're usually in. They're unremarkable, they're uninteresting, and they're usually hidden well in the corner of the level where the player naturally wouldn't explore. One pillar in particular requires you to run along a pane floor, turn a corner, and run around the pillar to get to the door on the other side. Most players probably wouldn't even notice this pillar because it looks like the wall that surrounds it, and it's hidden just out of sight in a corner. But perhaps the biggest bugbear with these teleporters is the fact that they're surrounded by pane floors. There's no way for the player to get to them without grabbing a rad suit from across the level, or risking it all, taking damage on a pane floor, and potentially dying, with no actual guarantee for the player that they're going to find anything interesting. I'm all for experimentation, and Inferno does a lot of experimenting throughout its levels. But tying the teleporter puzzle at the centre of this level to the pane floors and making them an essential part of the experience is just a bit too much in my opinion. If you're not going to landmark your pillars and you're not going to make them stand out against the rest of the level, which uses the exact same texture, then you may as well just turn the doors around so the player can see where they need to be running through the pane floor. But creating a situation where the player has to die multiple times to fully understand what it is they're supposed to be doing in this puzzle just seems cheap and lazy to me. And I'm fully aware that other levels in Ultimate Doom do this exact same things on a much smaller scale. Essential pathways are covered by pane floors and the player is expected to take damage, but it's not done to this scale. Here it's an essential component of the level and you can't work around it. Of course, the solution is to run across the level and grab the rad suits out of the red maze, but this is very cumbersome and tedious for the player. Speaking of that red maze, it kind of combines all the problems that this level has into one area. The fact that pretty much every floor in this maze will hurt you if you're not wearing a rad suit is laughable. It's kind of comical then that the red maze actually gives you so many rad suits to explore it in, even though it isn't that large at all. And then when you get to the end of the maze, you see the red keycard right next to the red switch. It's such an odd decision on a level where everything else is so spaced out. Perhaps most disappointing of all is the fact that this was the penultimate level for the original Doom release. Before heading off to face the Spider Mastermind, this was the final encounter most players had to deal with, and it leaves such a sour taste in the mouth. The enemy encounters are so drab, the level is just a nightmare to navigate, and most players get lost even trying to get near the ending. Ultimately, I think it's just a very poor level, one where the central gimmick really brings the entire experience down, with various design choices not helping the situation at all. Do I think there's a salvageable level in here somewhere? I really do. However, I feel that this incarnation of a level that many people got to play is just not it. Let me know in the comments what you think of this level. Are you a fan of Gate to Limbo? Do you think it's underrated, or do you agree with what I'm saying here? So here we are in Gate to Limbo. This is the 7th level in Inferno's episode, and for me there's just so much fundamentally wrong with this level. The opening here is quite aggressive, but that's perfectly fine because remember, this is the penultimate level in Inferno, and for the original Doom game when this released back in 1993, this was the second to last level, so this of course had to be challenging. And I do think this level is challenging, but I think it's challenging in the wrong way. You can see here we're being swarmed by these pinkies quite aggressively, and we don't have that much space to fight in because there's a pain floor right there. As we make our way through the level here, we can grab some shotgun shells. You can see that the cacodemons there have appeared from behind the starting position. I do like that because it does kind of give the level a sort of chase element. These enemies can chase you through the level, so you kind of want to deal with them as soon as possible. We can also grab a backpack full of ammo here, which is useful. Now, so far, so good, but I think visually this level's okay. It's definitely not one of the prettier levels in Ultimate Doom, but I think in terms of Inferno, the fact that we're deep in hell here, it's got a look to it that's okay, and it does try to mix things up at points, but what I really don't like is the overuse of this green brick texture here, and as you can see, they don't even align the texture properly at points, so it kind of has this unfinished feel to it when you're kind of paying close attention to the level. But you can see that this green brick texture is everywhere on this level, and it does kind of lead to some of the level beginning to feel very samey. We'll head inside here, grab the rocket launcher, take out the cacodemons. So I'm doing this from a pistol start because I think that in order to really experience how difficult this level is, you've got to play from pistol start, because if you're bringing in all your weapons from the previous levels, the challenge just completely disappears. Now you can see there, I hit the pain floor. It's avoidable at this point, but later on in the level it's not going to be so avoidable. There's a lot going on here, and I will admit this is a pretty fun encounter. You've got all kinds of enemies here. You've got Lost Souls, cacodemons, you've got pinkies. That pinky there came from behind. I do kind of like the chaos that this creates, especially when you accidentally trigger all of these secret areas without realizing that you're doing it all in one go, like I did there. There's also a lot of nooks and crannies for you to grab some health if you really need it. As we run across the level here, we've got the blue key, so we can access the next part of the level. And obviously, things are going pretty okay for now. You can see there's a lot of pain floor there, and we'll be dealing with that soon. There's more pain floors either side of this little platform here. I want to take care of these cacodemons here. These cacodemons are quite useless, I'm not going to lie. If you just run through this area and don't pay any mind to these guys, you're not really missing much. They can't really do much to you. Again, this is just another big and empty room with not much really going on in it, which is a bit of a shame because, as said, this is supposed to be the most challenging map. This is where the game should be throwing everything at the player to test their abilities. And yet, that doesn't really happen here. And also because we've woken up the enemies down here, obviously that was being blocked there. You can grab the rad suits, and I will say, this area is insanely overstocked with rad suits. There's about 8 or 9 down here, and that's really useful. Unfortunately, they're not as evenly distributed throughout the level, so you'll have to come running back here if you find yourself running on pain floors. There is a secret over here with the BFG, which I'm going to grab. This teleporter takes you all the way across the level for some reason. So you have to make your way all the way back across the level. I think one thing we can talk about here though is this level's logic is a bit weird. The fact that like that teleporter just kicked us all the way across the level, so we've got to come back here. And now we've got to make our way through this maze, which has a huge pain floor at the bottom of it. So you can see that if I wasn't using the rad suit here, I would be losing health. Now luckily I know my way through it, so we made our way to the red door here. I do love the fact that the red key is right next to the red door. And now that you've got the red key and you've been teleported across the level basically leaves everything to you. So the only red door that you would have naturally seen without exploring is that one there. And as you look through the window here, you can see that there's a switch there, there's some lost souls. So you have to make your way over to that switch there. That's the only assumption you can really make here. So now we come to this level's biggest problem, the central teleporter puzzle, because, as I said, that teleporter there was probably the only one the players actually seen while they're exploring the level, but in order to find the other teleporters, you have to go exploring. So for example, if you want that yellow key there, you've got to work out that you've got to come in here, see the yellow key, realise you can't get there, and then you've got to run across to the other side here, to go into this teleporter. But the thing is, like, most players probably haven't put the dots together that there's actually teleporters behind these pillars here, because the pillars all look the same as every other wall in this level. Now if they looked a bit more distinctive, it might help the player to understand that these are special and they need to be investigated. But when you come in this room here, the pillars look exactly the same as the wall around them. A lot of players don't put the dots together, and that's where the frustration of this level really begins. You can run over that gap there, and it will sort of bring us through to another teleporter here in a room that we haven't actually been to yet. This is in the other blue door, which I didn't come to earlier on. But this is like a big problem with this level because it doesn't signpost the teleporters or where they are, or the fact that you need to be kind of investigating them. Sure, players might stumble upon some of them just by exploring, but the thing is, already you've seen most of this level. Can you tell me where the last two are? Because let me tell you, they're not in the way that a player would normally go looking. So the player's meant to explore the level and try to find these teleports. But here's the thing, in Doom, you're taught not to run on the pain floors because you'll lose health and die. But if you want to get to the essential teleporter, it's right there. It just looks like a normal wall, and in order to really find the teleport, you've got to be willing to take damage or bring a rad suit from across the level. Now I know you can use the teleport from the other side of the level to get there, but the point is there's only a finite amount of rad suits on this level, and at the end of the day they're on the other side of the level, so most players are not going to connect that you can use the rad suits from over there and then teleport across to go exploring the pain floors. And if it sounds like I'm moaning a lot here, it's the fact that these teleports are positioned in a way that punishes the player for being curious. Because if you've got no health, what are you meant to do? You've got to take pain, you've got to take that damage, and it's just silly in my opinion. Like here for example, if you want to see that there's a teleporter around this here, you've got to come around on the pain floor. I always feel that the overuse of pain floors brings levels down in quality in my opinion, and in this level in particular, not only are the teleporters hidden in really awkward places, they're then surrounded by pain floors, and the player is basically made to feel that if you don't take that damage, you're not finishing this level. And in my opinion, that's just very, very weak. Get to Limbo for me is the weakest of all the Ultimate Doom levels. There are other levels that come close, but for me, this level is fundamentally broken, and it really doesn't translate well into an Ultimate Doom experience. I know some people are probably going to defend this. They're going to say, oh, this level's great once you work out the central puzzle. Yes, but here's the problem. A lot of players didn't figure it out. A lot of players stopped at this level because they found it that frustrating. It didn't have to be that way. There were ways they could have changed the design. They could have moved the teleporters around so it was easier to see that there were doors leading to the teleporters. You could have changed the colours of the pillars. You could have even used unique textures if they really, really wanted to. It just feels rushed. It feels incomplete, and it feels half-baked. The fact that there are two names attached to this level makes it all the more frustrating to deal with. I just think this is a terrible level, and that I really haven't got that much nice to say about it. Some of the rooms look nice, some of the encounters are pretty interesting with the pinkies, but other than that, in my opinion, this is the absolute worst of Ultimate Doom.